Hello and welcome to the Enderleafka Jewellery YouTube channel. My name is Lauren and today I am doing my wax carving projects for my diploma. I'm currently doing the Fine Diploma with Jewellers Academy, and I have been procrastinating on this project for weeks. I think it's been 2 months now since I was supposed to have done this project, and I have started it. I haven't finished it. So I need to finish my waxes. This one's going to be like pave set in wax, and this one's going to be channel set in wax. And I am in a weird place to be doing wax carving, but I actually prefer to wax carve while I am at home and watching TV instead of at the workshop at the bench. So I thought today, while I'm doing the wax carving, I would talk a little bit about my experiences in the jewellery industry. And I want to talk about my experiences working in the British jewellery industry. And I thought I would talk about my experiences with sexism in the jewellery industry while I am doing this project. It's not something I ever thought I would be comfortable talking about publicly, but I did have a good response to the Instagram post that I posted talking about my experiences a year and a half ago. So I'm going to show you what I have on my wax carving tray. It is just a dinner tray that I am using for carving. So I had the bag of wax. I have my saw blade, or my saw frame, and I couldn't find my wax blades, so it just has a normal blade in, but it did the job. My needle files, drill bits. These are the stones, so there's just loads of CZs in there that I will set some of them. My wax file, which I absolutely love, double-ended. These are my dentist tools, wax carving tools. My Max Wax pen, which again I love. And then these are the two pieces that I am working on. So what the idea was, I was going to make 2 Icelandic letters. So I made this one, which is Earth, and that will be the pave set piece. And then this one, so the other one was going to be Thorn, which is another Icelandic letter. But no, instead I decided I was going to make some kind of squiggly pattern. However, I didn't do it very well. So I was in my group Zoom call the other day while I was making this. So I was only half paying attention, and it doesn't look too good. So this is going to be the channel set piece, but I think I'm just going to carve some extra like notches into these long bits, because at the moment it doesn't look great. But at the same time, I don't want to spend too much time on these because I will never get them cast. It is just to pass an assignment. So I'm going to get on with it, and I will tell you some stories from my time working in the industry. Okay, so I started working in the jewellery industry in Birmingham Jewellery Quarter when I was 19. So I started making jewellery at 15 years old. It was beaded jewellery. I was self-taught mostly, and also obviously using the internet and some books. At 18, I took a part-time course at Birmingham School of Jewellery, and at 19, an apprenticeship scheme became available in Birmingham. It was the pilot scheme, so I applied for it. There were 50 of us that were invited for a meeting to talk about the apprenticeship and what to expect. And then after that day, 20 of us were going to be called back, and I was desperately hoping that I would be in one of the 20 that would be called back to be invited for a 2-week pre-employment course. And I actually had a full-time job at the time. I was working as a waitress, and I was also doing some management for that company as well. And I was ecstatic when I got that phone call. I made it to those 20 people that got onto the pre-employment course, and when I got there, I was the only one that actually had a job. So I thought this course would be like pre-employment just for the jewellery industry. No, this was like a pre-employment course just to get a job, basically, which I already had. And we did go a little bit into the jewellery industry, but not a lot. I made some good friends on this course, and I am still friends with some of them, 11 years on. And but then we were going to be competing for not that many places. So not all 20 of us were actually going to go through to get an apprenticeship. And I can't remember if there were 10 or 11 places that we were competing for, but there ended up being 12 of us that got the jobs in the end. So I had a job created for me, and I think one other person might have also had a job created for them. So there ended up being 12 of us. Only 8 of us actually finished that course though. And the interview process was pretty intense. So we were just going to like loads of interviews, and we were competing against our friends for these positions as well, which was a bit rough. It was nice seeing each other like before our interviews and sitting together, you know, to help calm the nerves a little bit, but it did add to the pressure a little bit, you know, that we might actually beat someone that we've made a relationship with, you know, to get these jobs. And we were all obviously in touch for that whole time. We were all messaging each other in the evenings to see how our interviews had gone, you know, and obviously we were interviewing at some of the same places. So I ended up having, I think, 3 interviews, and I had a 4th one lined up, but I got offered a job before I went to that 4th one. The interview process was tough, and 2 out of those 3 places, I had to sit down for an interview with 3 interviewers. So just me opposite 3 people, and tell them about any experience I had in jewellery. And I obviously took samples of jewellery that I had made with me. I was one of only 2 people that were interviewing who had any experience with jewellery, so I thought my chances were pretty good. There was one company that had interviewed me with 3 people that was very uncomfortable. We had toured that factory as part of the pre-employment course, and it had a weird vibe to it, let's say. I didn't see any women in the factory while I was going around for that tour. One of the interviewers was a woman, and they seemed very impressed with me, and it seemed kind of promising that I'd get that job, and I didn't. A few months later, the apprentice that did get that job, or 2 apprentices got jobs there, told me that they had been told that they almost gave me a job, but they didn't think a woman would be the right fit in the workshop. So that was kind of the first experience, really. The company that actually did end up hiring me created a position for me. So I was going to be in the workshop, and I was also going to be designing jewellery. That's what I was told. They said we were only looking for 2 mounters, like bench jewellers, but we will create a 3rd position. You can work at the bench, and you can also learn design, which is, I was ecstatic. That's something I really wanted to do. So I was super happy, accepted the job offer. And they just said, you just need to pass a bench trial, you know, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And then you get started. So I had a 4-hour bench trial, and I should have known then. So I had a 4-hour bench trial, as did 2 other apprentices. So 3 of us got jobs there. But we all did our bench trials individually. My bench trial, it seemed okay. You know, obviously there's a lot of banter in a workshop, and I was the only woman there. I was the first woman they ever hired in the workshop, actually. And some of the men seemed a bit, I don't want to say uncomfortable, like it just seemed a bit, like they thought it was strange, you know, that I was in there, but, you know, whatever. One of them did comment to me during that first bench trial, you know, you don't get to actually wear the jewellery in this job. Like when you finish making it, you have to like pass it on to be sent to the customer. Like you don't get to wear this. It's not for you. And I was a bit taken aback by that, because I was like, of course I know that. Like, you know, this is a business. Yeah, so that was the first thing that happened in that job, and I kind of should have taken that as a red flag, I think. I didn't. I went ahead, I accepted the job, and then not long after that, you know, came the start date, and the 3 of us starting to do our apprenticeship. When I started the job was when everything kind of really began. So we were just told to sit anywhere, you know, for our benches, just take a free space. So I think there were 4 free benches, and there were 3 of us. So you had the foreman of the workshop was at one end, His bench was at the end, and that was like a lower level of benches, and then there was a few steps up and a higher level. All of the 3 benches were on the lower level, and we were just kind of told to just find a free seat, basically. So 2 of us sat in free seats that were a bit further away, like the furthest end of the lower level, which was not far away from the manager, but it's like not next to him. And one had chosen to sit a bit closer to him. And then I think it was a couple of months after that, or maybe not even a couple of months, I was told to switch benches because he felt he needed to keep a closer eye on me, even though I already had experience doing jewellery. So the foreman of this workshop would have the most to say about me, and he would kind of lead this bullying towards me, which was awful. So whenever we finished working on an item, we had to take it to the foreman to be approved. And whenever the boys did a good job, he would tell them, "You've done a good job of that, like well done." Whenever I took something to show him, even if it was like similar quality to what the boys had done, he would just say, "Done a good job of that." For a woman, that is. And he never once gave me a compliment without saying, "for a woman," at the end of it. And he would often openly tell me that he didn't think that it was right that I was in that job. It wasn't a woman's job, and he was surprised that the company had hired me in that job. And at the first, he told me that he wasn't really going to take it too seriously with my training because I was going to go off to design anyway, and he suspected that I'd be like full-time designing like pretty soon anyway. He didn't expect that I'd be in the workshop because he didn't think I'd last in there, and he thought that as soon as I started designing, that's all I'd want to do. Which was not the case, of course. I wanted to make jewellery. I was making jewellery at home, this is what I wanted to do. I decided that. And then he also would start to lead some of the other guys to say things to me. I remember being told that I can't have my nails done all nice in this job, I wasn't wearing nail varnish. I had never had a manicure in my life. And it wasn't like me to go and get a manicure done anyway. It was just an out of the blue comment. Nothing had prompted it. It was just one of the guys said that to me. He was just sitting at his bench and literally just called over to me and told me that. We weren't having a conversation. It was just a random moment. A lot of the guys in the workshop would constantly, check on me, I guess. They would just come up to me when I was, doing some job away from my bench. They just kind of walk up behind me and say, "Are you sure you don't want to work in the office with the other women? In the sales office? That's where the women work. You don't want to be alone with us in here, do you?" I got that a lot. And I was like, "No, this is what I want to do. I don't want to work in sales. I want to be a jeweller." And they'd be like, "Yeah, but this is not where the women work." And I'd get that a lot throughout my time working there. And even the people in the sales office, of course there were also men in the office, but it was mostly women, even they would make comments. Also the women would kind of join in on the comments of "You're not supposed to be working in here, you're supposed to be in there with us, why would you apply for a job in here?" And it was constant. And I really didn't have a friend in the factory. Everyone was kind of against me. And I would mostly keep to myself. I hadn't, as far as I'm aware, I hadn't done anything to offend anyone. I was pretty shy, and I would just constantly, every day, get these comments at work, and it wasn't nice, And then a few months after I started, 3 of us apprentices were asked to start doing the barrelling. So we would have to go down, we all learnt together to go down and barrel the charms. And we had this huge barrelling machine that had, I think there was 4 barrels that you had to put in, but only 2 of them contained water and steel shot. So you'd have it in it was 4, and the whole thing would spin around, but only 2 of them had water and steel shot in and the charms, and they'd have to be opposite each other, and then the 2 empty ones, or they might have just had water and with nothing else, were in the other 2 positions opposite each other as well. So we all learnt how to do that, and that needed to be done 3 times a day, so we'd just take it in turns, each of us, to go down and do the barrelling. So each of us would have to take our turn to go downstairs, put the charms in, and then the next person would go and empty the barrel, get the charms out and put the next lot of charms in, and then the next person would go and empty that barrel and then put the last charms in. And we'd been doing this for months, and I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months after this started, and we were doing this every day, mind, so, you know, we were experienced in doing it. I had an accident. So the tool that would have been used to tighten the barrels in wasn't a proper tool for it anyway. It was basically a hollowed out steel ring sizing stick that, it had just been hollowed out in the middle, and that was used to tighten an Allen key that would keep the barrels in place. And basically one day I went to loosen the Allen key using the ring sizing stick. The stick had like flipped off because it wasn't the proper tool for it, it was loose. Flipped off and hit me in the face. And I just remember like the shock of it happening. No one had seen it. And then my mouth was bleeding, I was in a lot of pain. I chipped one of my front teeth, and one of my other front teeth was loose, it was wobbling. So I found one of the men in that area and just said, look, this just happened, you know, like, am I bleeding? Is my tooth missing? You know, I don't know what's happening, I'm just in pain. He was like, oh yeah, you've chipped a tooth and that tooth's loose. Yeah, you should go back up to your manager and tell him that. So I just went up and was like, look, this happened. And they were like, oh, so what did you do? Like, why did you do that? And I was like, well, it wasn't me, it was just an accident, you know, this happened. And like, we clearly did something wrong. No one's done that before. And I was like I think it's because of the tools that we use and not, you know, proper tools for this. And they were like, no, you can't blame the tools. And they basically left me. They just told me, you'll get over it basically, just sit down, you'll be fine. And this was a Friday. I felt like I should get some like dental care or something. I felt like I should go to the dental hospital, or, you know, go to an emergency dentist or something to get this looked at because the tooth was loose and I didn't want it to fall out over the weekend. I called my mum and she got me an emergency dentist appointment, but it was for the following Monday after the weekend. So I was left to just carry on working. I was told to carry on working for the rest of the day and, you know, deal with it basically. And I was still bleeding for a long time. 6 hours after this happened, one of the top managers heard what had happened finally. He came in, he looked at my mouth and he was like, I think she needs to go to the dental hospital, you know, and he took me. They called the dental hospital first. He drove me there and it was 10 minutes before they closed. They literally managed to squeeze me in for an appointment, and they said they were going to be closed on the weekend, and it was really good that I came in before the weekend because there was a chance that I could have lost the tooth. Luckily it firmed up and the tooth didn't fall out, and then my dentist repaired the chipped tooth on the Monday. So they just left me basically for all that time. When I went back to work on Monday after having my tooth repaired, I was told that I was not allowed to do the barreling anymore because it was clearly too heavy for a woman. Literally the words that I was told. And that the boys would carry on doing it from then on, but I would not be doing it anymore. And they did actually change the tool that was used. You know, they got a proper tool for it then. But they still, you know, kind of blamed me for that happening, even though it was the equipment I was using. There was a time when so I would do a lot of repairs in that job, and my manager gave me a ring to repair once, and he'd repaired it. He wanted me to finish it basically, like finish buffing it and get it ready for polishing, like pre-prep it for polishing. So he handed me the ring and there was a stone missing, but that was normal because it was a repair, so I didn't say anything. A lot of repairs came with missing stones in them, you know. That's like, that might be the reason that it needed to be repaired. So, you know, I just finished it, gave it back to him, and then he just went, where's the stone, Lauren? And I was like, what do you mean, where's the stone? And he was like, there's a stone missing in this. And I was like, there was a stone missing in it, you know, when you handed it to me. And he was like, no, there wasn't. There was not a stone. I was like, there was a stone missing when you handed it to me. Like, I'm not lying. Like, he was like, well, why didn't you tell me there was a stone missing? And I was like, there's usually stones missing in the rings you give me for repairs. You know, you've never asked me to tell you before because I just assume that you know. And he's like, well, you need to find it. It's like, you can't steal a diamond. And I was like, I didn't do anything. It wasn't in there. He stopped the whole workshop and told them that I had carelessly lost a stone and that the whole workshop needed to stop to search for it because it was a £20,000 diamond and, you know, it needed to be found. Eventually, he found it in the water that we used to rinse out things after the pickle. I hadn't soldered it. He'd been the one that had soldered it and put it in the pickle. I had not been anywhere near the pickle with it. So he found it there and, realised it was his mistake. Didn't apologise and didn't correct the workshop. And they all thought that I basically wanted to steal things then. And no one trusted me because they thought I'd tried to steal this diamond. Yeah. And he wouldn't correct anyone that he was the one who'd lost it, and it just made everyone lose trust in me. At some point while I was working there, I got a friend in the company. She didn't work in the workshop or the office. She was in a different role, and she was doing marketing for the company. We got on really well, so I was glad to finally have someone in the company to talk to. And because she was in marketing, she would take photos for the company, and there were going to be some photos that were going to be in the reception area that guests could see when they came in, like blown up big. So she asked me if she could take some photos of me working, and I said, yeah, you can do it on my lunch break. So on my lunch break, I set up an area, and she would take some shots of me filing the rings and stuff just on my hands, with the ring. And then she said she wanted a shot of me soldering, and I said I actually don't have anything that needs soldering right now. And she said, can you set up a fake soldering scene? So there was a ring that didn't need to be soldered. It was cast as, a one-piece ring. So I was like, I can do this, but, just so you know, everyone's going to know that this isn't something that needs soldering. She told me it's fine. It was just, for practice photos, Anyway, that photo did end up being published as one of the big blow-up photos that was in the lobby. And, of course, my manager started everyone saying, about Lauren doesn't know how to solder or something. That clearly didn't need soldering. And, yeah, it was just... Yeah, it was just endless. There was always something. And no matter what I did, I couldn't do something right. A year after starting there, I still hadn't been moved to the design. I was only meant to be doing design part-time, and I got really frustrated and, kind of told them, I need to be in design. My manager agreed that I needed to be in design. I think because he wanted to get rid of me, basically. Then the person who had promised me that job, higher up, claimed no knowledge. He was like, I wouldn't promise anyone a design job. It's even my manager was like, you did, So that was a big drama, getting that, and I was finally sent to design 1 day a week, and then eventually ended up just being an hour and a half every day, or an hour a day, first thing in the morning. I was incredibly happy, because at least I'd get 1 day of relief from everything in the workshop. But of course, I didn't. So yeah, I was put in the main sales office. I thought I was going to be put in the design office, but no, of course not. So I was put in the main sales office because the design manager didn't want to train me, actually. There wasn't given any training. I was just given a sketch pad and a pencil and told to draw. And I hadn't been shown anything, basically, how to do, the technical drawing or anything. A few weeks later, I was given some stencils. So again, I didn't know that was a thing. No one had told me anything. They had said, we want to train you as a designer, but they didn't tell me, they didn't give me anything, or to give me any instructions. So I would basically just go on the computer and kind of look up what to do, and kind of had to teach myself. And I would just go and research trends, because I literally had been given no instruction. They were design, create a ring, and I was like, what? What are you looking for? No instructions whatsoever. And slowly, over a few months, I was given more instructions, but not really any help with the actual design aspect of it, And I did have, eventually, I think about 6 rings that were published in the catalogue that I designed with minimal instruction. The ladies in the sale office, again, weren't happy that I was in there. They were kind of like, you should just be doing our job full time. What are you doing? Why are you drawing? Why are you still working in that workshop? Why do you want to be in there with the men and everything? And it was just endless. It was just, I felt like I couldn't do anything right no matter where I went. It was just such a bad atmosphere for me. In the next round of apprentices, which started about a year after my apprenticeship started, there was another girl that was hired as an apprentice, not in my workshop, but in one of the other workshops. She was supposed to be doing, I think, diamond cut wedding rings. But the guy who was meant to be teaching her, he had to go on medical leave for quite a long time. Instead of putting her in a different department temporarily until he came back, she was made to clean the workshops, just like sweep the floors, mop the floors, all day, every day. Not being taught any skills, and she's an apprentice that needed to be taught skills. And she did this for 6 months until she finally just quit the apprenticeship because she's like, I'm not learning anything anyway. It was just horrible. There were also a few boys that were hired at the same time as her, all in different departments. And they were all found an alternative department to work in if their manager was even off for one day. And hers was meant to be off for a few months, and they didn't find anything else for her to do except for clean. At some point I decided to start doing an evening class in stone setting, partly because stone setting was what I really, really wanted to learn how to do. I was thinking I could be a setter one day, you know. And also the setting workshop, the men in there were very lovely. There was not many of them, and they were really nice. And when I said that I wanted to learn setting, they were actually quite supportive. And I'm like, yeah, you should, you know, go for it. Why not? So I enrolled on this evening course, paid for it myself. It was a year-long course, once a week. Super excited to learn, and I was thinking in a year, you know, I'm going to be great at this. I'm going to be, you know, be able to be a setter, or, you know, have the basics, have the foundations at least, and maybe get the chance to move department or even move company to do this. But yeah, the man running that course, he was quite old school. He was in his 60s, and again, the experiences were also similar there. So it didn't stop. It was no relief from this negativity around me trying to do something, you know, trying to do something I really wanted to do. So I remember on the first day of that evening class, I was super excited, and this guy said, is there anyone here who is a student? You know, some people put their hands up. And then he asked, is there anyone here who is apprenticing in one of the local companies? So I was the only person that put my hand up. I said, me. And he looked at me and said, what company? You know, what are you doing there? I said the name of the company and told him that I was a mounter, bench jeweller. And he looked shocked and he went, what? Like, literally his reaction was like, you? A mounter? And I was like, yeah, you know, is there a problem? And he was like, and that company hired you. It's a, you know, quite a prestigious company. And it's like, yeah. He said, oh, so you knew? And I was like, I've been doing this, I think, about a year at that point. And he was like, oh, right. You know, and he seemed a bit in disbelief. And yeah, again, he wasn't a particularly good teacher. He wasn't very good at explaining things, and a lot of the people there, he didn't seem to want to help. He had priorities on the kind of people that he wanted to help, and I was definitely low on that list. I would ask him for help sometimes, and he'd just be like, I'm not around to you yet. And I would literally get maybe 10 minutes in one class maximum of attention. Sometimes it wasn't even that. And this was a 3-hour class each week, and you know, there was not that many people that we should only have 10 minutes each. You know, we would have been able to have time to have more time each. He didn't really explain anything to me, and I remember the one time that he did come to kind of like help was he just looked at the piece and just told me how bad it was, how terrible, because I hadn't really had any help with it. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then he just went, and that company hired you. So wow, they've really lowered their standards. And I was like, wow, thank you. And I really genuinely started to believe that I shouldn't be in this industry. I genuinely thought, you know, maybe they're right, maybe this isn't for me, maybe this isn't what I should be doing. And there was just so many more things, you know, it was constant. There were more things than I could tell you because I can't bring everything to the front of my mind just because there was that many things. But I do remember the day that I decided enough was enough and I was going to quit. Because I stayed for 2 years in that job because of my apprenticeship, and I really wanted to finish not only the level 2 but also the level 3 apprenticeship. And I was so worried that if I quit, not only would I not be able to get another job in the industry, I was also scared that the apprenticeship company would just cancel my apprenticeship and I wouldn't be able to finish my qualifications. So I remember one morning I came in, and I think I was a few minutes late that day, which was unlike me. Anyway, I walked in and there were three of the guys who were just huddled around my bench, and they were just talking, and I just heard them say something. They just said something with her in it, something about her. And because I was the only woman in there, I just knew that I was the person that they were talking about. I opened the door. They all just looked at me, looked at each other, went quiet, and all went their own separate ways. And you know that feeling when you just know that someone's been talking about you? And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So on my lunch breaks, I would meet up with my friends who also worked in the companies around the area in the Jewellery Quarter. And I just said, look, has anyone got any job going at their company? I don't care what it is, I just need a new job. And they all knew that I wasn't happy at the company I was working at, but they didn't think I'd seriously leave it. And I was like, seriously, I need this job. And then one of them was like, if you seriously want something, I think there's a position as an enameller at my place. And I was like, I'll take it. Just give me an application, I'll do it. He got me an application. I had an interview, and I was offered the job. I was also told that I could keep the apprenticeship. I also told the apprenticeship company what was going on, and they were like, you should have told us earlier. We would have got you out of this place earlier. Always feel like you can come to us. Never feel like you have to keep this a secret. It's like, thank you so much. And they were really supportive. I will give them that. And and I hadn't given him my notice. One of my teachers, because we're on apprenticeship, day release once a week to college, accidentally revealed that I was going to be going to a new job. And my colleagues, who were also apprentices, didn't know because I hadn't handed in my notice yet. One of them vanished in our coffee break, and he went back to tell everyone in the workshop. I didn't have to go to work for the next couple of days because I had booked a couple of days off. But yeah, the first day back at work was awkward. So I had my notice with me, but I wasn't going to hand it to the foreman. I was going to wait until his manager was in and hand it to him. The foreman came in and his manager started an hour later, so I was just waiting for him to come in. And it was maybe half an hour after we started work. He just looked at me and he was like, Lauren, I need to speak to you now. Oh God, because I didn't want to give it to him. So we went out to talk, and I just kind of threw the paper on the table before he could say anything, because I was so nervous. I was like, I don't care what he's going to say, I'm quitting, And he just basically was like, I thought you were shy this whole time, and now you just come in, you just throw this. He was like, I just taught you everything, and now you're just throwing it in my face, and you're just going to quit like that. And I was like, I haven't been treated well here. I'm not. There's a reason that I'm quitting. I enjoy the work that I'm doing. I love the job that I'm doing, but the environment is just not good, And he's like, well, I knew you were going to quit anyway. I always knew you were going to quit, And he was trying to tell me that I wasn't cut out for it, He was trying to put me down a lot. And before we finished our little talk, he leaned into me and he just told me, I'm going to make damn sure that they never hire another woman in this workshop again. It was things like that was just so obviously not okay that they just got away with. And it was just, I couldn't wait to be out of there, especially after that. During my last month, my manager's manager, the one that I wanted to hand my notice into originally, he came to speak to me and he told me, look, I know things haven't been good for you here. I know there's been some friction between you and the foreman. I do want to have a proper conversation about this with you to see what we could do better next time before you leave, on your last week, or maybe your last day or something, just so that we have a record of it and so that we can, see how to do better in the future. And he basically avoided me until I quit, so I never had that meeting with him. He just told me that he wanted the meeting but never actually wanted to follow through with it, which was a bit disappointing. But on my new job, I was doing something different. I learnt enamelling. I also learnt, I was working in a few different places. After a year, I was also sent into the silversmithing workshop 1 day a week. I was sent on silversmithing courses. I did a lot, and I had such a good experience there. I loved working there. Everyone was really nice. In the silversmithing workshop, I was really scared, and I did cry on my first day that I was in there because I thought it would be a similar experience. The men couldn't have been more lovely. There was only one man that was like very old school, and also didn't want a woman working in there. He did make a comment about like, well, this used to be a department where the silversmiths were respected, they were the most respected people in the company, and now I guess they just let anyone in. But all of the others just rolled their eyes and just told him to shut up. So it was a far better experience. But yeah, the first day I did cry because I was genuinely scared that it was all going to start again. And it's a shame because like metalwork is what I love to do. And it's what I wanted to do for so many years. And to be scared to the point of crying that I'm getting the chance to do that again because of the experience at my first job and the course that I'd done. Yeah, it was just, it was a shame, but I'm glad because I ended up being in the silversmiths workshop once a week, sometimes a little bit more, for a year, about a year or a bit over. And it kind of helped me get past that feeling that I'm not good enough to do the metalwork. And so I worked in there until I moved to Iceland. I had a few years break and started to get into it again after. And because I'd had a few years break, when I started to make jewellery again, I always had that voice in the back of my mind whenever something went wrong. That, like, you're not good enough, you're a woman, you shouldn't be doing this. But the more I practiced, I'm getting my skills back. I'm also improving them with the diplomas that I'm doing and the other courses that I'm taking. And yeah, I am excited to be doing what I want to do and to be feeling good about it, finally. So that was a bit of a long video, longer than I was planning. Sorry it was a bit all over the place, I'm just talking out of my head basically. I don't have an order, I don't have a script or anything. I'm just kind of recounting my experiences. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you work in the jewellery industry as a woman, or even as a man who has women in the workshop, let me know if you've heard of anyone who's had experiences like this, or if you've had any experiences yourself, like this. And I'm curious to hear how it is in other countries as well, because I know that jewellery isn't always a male-dominated industry in every country. Yeah, so that's it for today. I will be posting some tutorials soon, and some more videos of me doing actual work. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a lovely day. Bye!